What did your crush do that absolutely killed your interest? Story 1. His sister actually approached me and let me know that he was once arrested for locking their other pregnant sister in their basement, went on a coke binge while she desperately tried to get out, and went outside to beat their unsuspecting neighbor's van with a golf club. That was a bygone nope. Story 2 told me that she didn't like me back anymore, but maybe if I waited long enough she would like me like that again. Edit. She told me that I had gotten more critical lately and I changed, so she wanted me to change back before she would be with me. Story 3. She invited me over to her place not as a date thing, but just to hang out as friends. Her house was absolutely filthy and the glass of coke she gave me had a hair in it. She was really cute, had a great personality, and was a genuinely nice person, but as soon as I saw cat on the floor near the front door and just dirty everything, my crush disappeared and I left in a hurry. Story 4. Wanted to look through my phone on our first date to make sure I wasn't talking to anyone else. That was our last date. Edit. It kind of surprises me some people think I'm a man and the other party was a woman. It's the other way around. Toxic stuff nonetheless. Story 5. We worked together and as I got to know him more I learned he talked badly about everyone. Nurses that are amazing head belittle. Talk about how certain people don't know what they're doing because they asked for an ultrasound as they were struggling getting a vein on a heroin addict. The paramedics were worthless. Doctors don't know what they're doing. Who he thought was hooking up and it completely turned me off. He's in his early 40s and into gossip more than my teenage daughter. Story 6. He picked me up for our first date and his car was disgusting, not talking a few trash items. The entire back seat and floorboard was completely covered in piled up trash. Even up front, I had to step on empty McDonald's bags, old soda bottles, wrappers etc. to even get in, and all he said was, just move it around with your feet. No sorry or anything, made me feel like trash too, like dang, couldn't even clean up a little. Story 7. We were teenagers, he lived in a different province, and we used to chat on Skype. He wanted me to think he was A or something and would always talk about his drug use. He ended up faking a heroin overdose when we were on chat together. I was hysterically crying and freaking out thinking I was watching someone dying and was trying to figure out how to call 911 in another province when he snapped out of it and told me he was actually okay. I didn't talk to him much after that. Story 8. Huge crush on a fellow uni student. I was invited over for what I expected to be a platonic study date, but hey, any time spent is better than just being alone. Or so I thought. Got there and found another student from class also okay study group. Turns out her mom and her set us up for a full press MLM pitch, video, literature, the works. I stayed a bit not to be rude, excused myself shortly, and only talked to her in class just in passing from then on. Huge letdown. Edit. MLM means multi-level marketing, aka a pyramid scheme. Signing up to both buy and sell something, while recruiting others to sell also, you get a % of all of your recruit sales also. All the percentages basically flow upward, so the only way to make any significant money is to be high in the tree towards the top of the pyramid. It's all bullshit, basically. Story 9. This was years ago. On a first date tried to convince me to quit my job and put all my savings into gold bars, then demanded I let him read my tarot cards to see if we'd be a good fit. Nope nope nope. Story 10. Attempted to get through a horror movie together and he kept letting the movie run then rewinding the movie so that the horror never came. He pretended to be scared and would whine about the scare that was coming. I guess he thought this was a cute gesture, and would refuse to continue. It dragged a 5-minute scene into a 45-minute production of his "Oh no, but I'm scared. No, I don't want to, this is terrifying." This was a guy who told me that he loved horror movies. He was full of really weird contradictions. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Edit. Holy cow, this really blew up. Thanks for confirming I'm not insane for being annoyed with his actions. Thanks for the comments. A lot of them were hilarious. There were a lot of questions, so we'll try to answer some of them. What was the movie? It was an older J horror movie called Kukase Kana. I think the English title was something like The Carved Mouth Woman. You mentioned he fast-forwarded. Do you mean rewound? Nope, I do mean fast-forwarded. He would rewind, then fast-forward to get to the beginning of the scene and then pause it and whine about how it was going to be scary. He would also study the paused scene and look at clues to determine what the scare was going to be. Did you comfort hug him? It was maybe the second time we'd hung out together. So even though I was interested in him, it was too early to say we were dating and I was pretty shy and kind of reserved, so no hugging would have happened even if it all had gone well. What were you doing during the 45 minutes? I remember thinking, is he for real? Then thought that somehow maybe he was trying to tease me. He's a man of a lot of contradictions, so I played along for a while. By the time 15 minutes passed, I'm sure I was sighing audibly. I suggested that we stop and maybe watch something else. He refused. Close to the 30-minute mark I think I snapped and said words to the effect of, "Come on, it's probably not that bad. Let's just go through it and continue the movie. Don't waste time." He laughed and kept up the one-man show of "I'm a sensitive man and am not afraid to show it." I gave up and just started looking through my phone because this was such a waste of time. And finally I think he realized he'd gone too far and let the scene play out. Did you end up finishing the movie? Nope, because he tried the same thing at the next scary part and I made my excuses and got out of there. Was he a child? Nope, fully grown male of legal age. Why didn't you just stab him? I considered it, but I wasn't carrying my Dexter kill room equipment and the blood would have been too messy. Just kidding, he was tall and I'm pretty short, probably wouldn't have ended well for me. Did you let him know why you didn't want to see him again? Nope, I never told him that this was the defining moment in which I lost interest. He was also kind of controlling and had a number of really weird quirks that I won't bore my fellow Redditors with. Basically we just didn't talk as much after that, and that was that. Story 11. I was 21 and in college. He was a classmate of mine. He seemed so charming and was easy on the eyes. One day I overheard him talking to his friends about how he doesn't date engineer women because math is for men. Edit. Some people are missing the point here. It's not that he said he wouldn't want to date an engineer that bothered me. It's that he said that women aren't meant for math. Story 12. Talked about every woman in his life. Should have seen the red flags earlier. Didn't realize until later that he probably did the same to me. Apparently having an opinion about anything and speaking for yourself isn't a very ladylike thing to do. Story 13. Dude was the perfect epitome of the term douchebag. He used to be nice to people only to gain their trust and then betray them. He was attractive though and a smooth talker as well. We started talking, became friends, and I developed a crush on him. Unfortunately, I never knew then what type of double-headed snake he was. Then on one day I witnessed him throwing his best friend under the bus just to save his reputation. Completely lost interest. Cut ties with him and he gave no about it. Only then did I realize how toxic people can be sometimes. Edit grammar. Story 14. Being rude to the waiter and complained that food is taking too long during dinner rush hour. I work in the industry for a year. It's not easy when being slammed during rush. Story 15. Girl in car behind him honked when the light turned green. He got out of the car and began screaming and banging on her windshield. That's when I knew he was a psycho and I needed to get out of that relationship. Took me a destroyed home and 2 restraining orders later, but we've been broken up for 3 years now. Story 16. Told me he was only being nice to me because he was interested in a friend of mine. I see his Facebook posts now. He is dumber than a box of rocks on a treadmill. Story 17. Treated me like for being the only female in our paintball team. He said that women belong to kitchen, not battlefield. Edit. I never, though the worst memory of my life will bring me the most karma out of everything I've ever posted. Thanks. I kinda hope he has read it and find it now. Edit. 2 guys. I made a mistake. He didn't say battlefield. We are Polish. He said something that cannot be translated perfectly, so I just captured the idea. The word battlefield is mine. I didn't know how to call it in English. Now I know it's a field, sorry. Story 18. Bragged about drinking and driving. He told me that he and his friends have a nothing under 100 club, where they drink and then drive on the interstate going 100 miles per hour and have to send a full-length Snapchat video of the speedometer to each other. 2 of my friends have been killed by a drunk driver 3 months prior. Story 19. There was a girl in college who was super hot until I saw her share a lollipop with her dog. Not like let him have the last lick or two, no. She'd hold it for a while, then hold it out to let the dog lick it for a bit, then put it back in her mouth. Fucking gross. Story 20. Told me that smart girls are ugly and dumb girls are beautiful, so he'd rather date a dumb girl and wouldn't date me because I'm smart. Edit. Wow, this is the most upvotes I've gotten. Thanks guys. 3. Edit. 2. Thanks kind stranger for the award. It's my first award. Thank you very much. Story 21. In college, I was crazy about a girl named Megan. She was maybe 2 years younger than me, blonde, life of the party type gal. Took her to dinner and chatted her up about her life. Got to talking about past SOs and realized she had very little experience with meaningful, loving relationships. Romantically, it seemed she was on autopilot. In fact, the more we talked the more obvious it became that she wasn't ready to love anyone but herself, which, you know, good for her. Self-love and self-discovery are kind of big parts of going away to college and growing up, but I realized in that moment that what I wanted versus what she wanted were miles apart. It was a crystallizing moment, and I felt the distance between us widen and watched her shrink away. Never asked her out again, and she never asked why. Either she felt it too, or autopilot just kicked in, or she just wasn't interested. Story 22. Sorry for my bad English, but here's my story. I had a crush on someone. Let's call her Amanda. For 3 years I tried to get with her. Amanda used me if she needed attention and I was cool with that. One night Amanda was ringing my doorbell at 2 a.m. It was obvious that Amanda was drunk and I let her in so we could talk. After a few minutes she said she wants me to her. I told her that I never sleep with someone who's drunk, but we could do it when she is sober. She got angry and the insults came flying. She stormed out of my house, got in her car, backed it up into my motorcycle and drove away. I never talked to her again after that night. Edit. Let me answer a few questions. 1. Did you call the police? When this all happened I was in shock and didn't even think about calling the police. I texted her parents and explained the situation. I didn't report her because her parents offered to pay for the damage. 2. Was your motorcycle damaged? Yes. I don't know the words in English for what was damaged, but the cost to fix it was about $2,000. Revealed his list of conquests. Not even my brother knows how many women I've slept with. Then he offered to take my virginity in the back of his pickup truck. I passed. Story 23. My 18-year-old self thought it would be cute to invite him to a Christmas parade, but this dude had the audacity to ask me why I thought he would ever be interested in someone like me. Edit. Why my first 3K. I wish I could take you all to a Christmas parade. Also, I met my boyfriend just over a year ago and it has been the most wonderful surprise of my life. Story 24. He talked about how he and his friends used to abuse farm cats. They talked about one that was buried and then run over. I did a quick 180 and absolutely hated him. Edit. Little late now, but thank you everyone for the upvotes. Unfortunately I only heard about the abuse when he was talking to someone else, and it wasn't a recent thing. Think high school, and at this point he was a few years into college. I also live in Farmtown, USA, so this really isn't an uncommon thing, and I doubt the cops would do anything. I'm glad to see so many caring people on here, though cats don't get as much love in my community as they should. Our 3 are here living in spoiled royalty, and my dad hates it. Story 25 had a crush on this girl back in high school. She seemed like a sweet girl. After she rejected me I let it go but still was interested in maintaining some sort of friendship. Found out she was actually pretty toxic behind my back. She made fun of me for a lot of things that really didn't matter, like hand motions while talking, and I just lost interest in her entirely, even in a friendship. Story 26 She offered to drive and picked me up in her car because we had plans to go out to dinner and get to know each other better. I realized after about 20 minutes she was not driving to the restaurant and instead stopped at a gas station to get into someone else's car and buy drugs. Basically made me accessory to a drug deal under false pretenses. Story 27 basically shut me down and made it clear to me that I was being the typical nice guy cliché. This is back when I was about 20. After a couple of days of sulking, I started examining my behavior and realized she was absolutely right. Glad it happened. My ideas of how a relationship should work were entirely twisted at the time. I got my together shortly after, addressed my stupid and entitled behavior, worked on myself mentally and physically, and eventually met an amazing woman who is now my wife. Scary to look back and think how close I got to becoming one of those incel neckbeard types. Story 28 filmed me and made Snapchat stories of it, all while I was in an argument with somebody from our neighborhoods. Just know, I am so kind to you, why would you do that? Immediately blocked her on WhatsApp and unfollowed everywhere. Edit, somebody commented I would not mind, she clearly did not ask me for permission. It was an argument where I was being yelled at for parking mistake. If she enjoys somebody confronting me for an unintentional error, I don't think so she is worth it. Thanks for the upvotes. Story 29 She said I smile too much you. I smile when I want to, I try to find joy. Asked if I wanted a drink of her Coke, I said yes and took one, then she laughed and you have my cold now. Story 30 He didn't believe in dinosaurs. One of those super religious types, and someone got into a conversation with him about dinosaurs, and he was absolutely convinced that dinosaur bones were put there by the devil to trick us. As a firm lover of dinosaurs, as soon as I heard that, any and all attraction disappeared. Edit This post got a bit bigger than I ever expected and the comments are cracking me up. I love dinosaurs and doodling them so much that I made a little doodle to celebrate. Thank y'all. Story 31 In a group text with a ton of our mutual friends, he ignited an argument about lockdown and ended it with sorry I just like arguing and that didn't pass the vibe check. Story 32 This was in college. We were acquaintances and had a few classes together. He was cute, funny, and I totally had a crush on him. He asked me out to dinner and a movie. At the restaurant he ordered the most expensive things on the menu. Apps, drinks, lobster, and even dessert. When the bill came he said you got this, right? I was so embarrassed I paid. Then I said I'd skip the movie because I wasn't feeling well and he asked me to give him 20 for gas and for wasting his time. I didn't and just left, ugh. After that he couldn't seem to understand why I didn't want to go out with him again. Story 33 She brought a friend to dinner with us, which was okay, I didn't mind. Then they both shoplifted afterward while I was on the other side of the store, told her I didn't date thieves and she broke down apologizing. Story 34 I was giving her a place to sleep when she was feuding with her mother. After weeks of picking up after her, I dared to complain. She had a screaming fit, packed up her and left. I was glad to be rid of her. Until later it got around to me that she was telling people on FB that I kicked her out for refusing to give me a. There is a lot I can forgive, but that was the first time I had ever had anyone just straight up make stuff up about me. I saw a bit of a tattoo under his shirt, so naturally I asked him what it was. It's an eagle. Wow, that's cool. He proceeded to lift up his shirt. Turned out that it wasn't a cool cheesy eagle in the wind or something. It was the logotype one with its head completely turned to the side, wings sprung out on either side, full-on Nazi symbol on his chest. I was taken aback but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, and asked him some more political stuff. Yeah, no doubt there, he was a homophobic, foreigners hating. I did not thank the friend who set us up on this blind date. Edit just to clarify, it wasn't a small or even medium tattoo. It took over all of his left pectoral, just ugly thick black lines. Nothing stylized. If you want to celebrate your German heritage, cool, go for it, but I think there might be better ways to do it, because having such a big statement tattooed on your body is quite unambiguous right off the bat. Story 35 Bouncer at a bar I used to go to. I had a mad crush on him. He was beautiful, he was a bit of a tart. Every night some starry-eyed equally beautiful woman would leave with him. Being a bit of a tart was not a deal-breaker for me. I was too back then, if not as successful as him not a super pretty girl. But one night I guess he left too late. The hot girls were gone and he informed me that he was willing to take me home that night. No, nothing less sexy than that'll do, pig, being treated like a sure thing, and of course the answer is gonna be yes, because how would someone like me turn down someone like him? Story 36 When I was a teenager we worked together as lifeguards. I adored him so much until one day he just starts talking about this random woman that he didn't know and wasn't even there that was wearing shorts. He said he was fine until she sat down and had some cellulite on her thighs. And he kept being angry and talking about how she should be doing squats to be more appealing. Like his rant was angry and long and no one was adding to his conversation. Just silence. After that I took off my rose-colored glasses and saw that he was, in fact, a huge douchebag. I'm kinda grateful he showed himself that way, cause I was really into him until then. Could have been a bad time for my teenage brain. Story 37 Found out she was a religious homophobic bigot. The religious part one was already aware of and wasn't a big deal, but didn't know she had strong negative views about homosexuality. I have 3 gay friends, so there was no way I wanted her in my life. Story 38. I was chasing after some girl in college and she really had my interest. I saw her in a CAF with a cigarette in her hand and it immediately turned me off forever. Edit just thought about somebody smoking indoors. It was a different time. Story 39. We went to Disneyland, where I had an annual pass with my friends and family for an event called Dapper Day where you dress up in dapper clothing so everything looks very old-timey. I had done it for years with my friends and he wanted to come, and my mom and siblings were going for the first time too. I was really excited as it was the first time he had ever met my family. Well, we went on one ride with my family and my friends and then he said, "Do you want to go on a ride, just me and you?" I thought we'd come back and spend the rest of the day with them, but as soon as we were out of earshot he was complaining about my family and how weird it was that they were there and he wanted to do Disney with just me. But he had known they were coming, so I was confused. Then we went on one more ride and he started complaining about how hot it was, how tired he was, and before lunch he wanted to go home. I was super upset but didn't want him leaving on his own, so I just went with him. But on the way home I wished I had just let him leave and I could have stayed with all the people I loved. It was the first time in years my sister and my mom had been to Disney, and I didn't know it then, but it was the last time I got to go with my brothers before they grew up and now they hate me. He was just some dude I dated. Not a boyfriend or anything that lasted very long. I'm still so mad at myself for letting him ruin my day. But yeah, it absolutely killed anything I felt for him and we broke up a few days later. Story 40. Jokingly punched another girl in the arm so hard that she was still rubbing it an hour later. Violence against women isn't funny. And after that I could only ever see him as a potential abuser. Story 41. I was a midnight clerk at a truck stop, and very good-looking man came in every night on his run to visit with me. He wore an ankle monitor for probation parole. I asked about it and he told me he was falsely accused of kissing his ex-wife's daughter. She was 13. I took his word. He seemed to be a real good guy. About 2 weeks later we were bullshitting and flirting, and a little girl about 12 years old came in with her dad. He looked that little girl up and down like a pervert. I was instantly sick to my stomach. Story 42. We were eating together at a restaurant and he spat a gob of food onto my arm while he was talking. He was also ridiculously bad at texting, with horrible spelling and grammar, but the chewed up food on my arm was the end. Story 43. Got a girlfriend. We were flirting back and forth for a month or two, but we knew of each other before started talking, had mutual friends, and I developed a crush on him. Turns out he treats all the girls the same way and I wasn't special to him. Then he and his friend got together and started dating. So that blew my attraction to him and we stopped talking and texting each other. He was one of those people who drops all friendships when they get into a relationship. Story 44. In black. She's black. Our crush was mutual. Then she found out that I was once in a relationship with a white woman. She then jumped down a rabbit's hole of my betrayal of the black family, and some other nonsense of my trauma of self-hatred. Never been turned off by anything faster than that. Story 45. Spent a day on a mattress on the back of a pickup truck watching the sun set after a horse ride tour. Most of the time there was spent on taking photos for Facebook and Instagram. Having our day shared like that killed the magic and was a huge turn-off. Story 46. Not crush, but most recent ex. I think I started to lose feelings when he would flat out not bother to hold a conversation with me. At dinner, in the car, anywhere. He also expressed mild disgust any time I would be slightly outgoing, loud, or just myself, yet claimed he cared about me and that I was kind, etc., etc. I think he was just too introverted and logistical compared to myself. He also only ever played his music in the car, so I spent almost 2 years with an enormous lack of Led Zeppelin in my life, which was righteously uncool and ungroovy. Story 47. Out of the blue she told me that I was a big nerd and sometime after that berated me for enthusiastically providing camping equipment. Because she had none, she may had felt pressured for the camping, but her reaction was way too strong. Story 48. We were sorta dating, but after we broke it off, she accused me of trying to rape her. Wasn't even the biggest flag. Biggest one is she was verbally abusive whenever she got slightly upset. Story 49. Decided to date someone else to get me to run after him. He didn't expect me to respect his choice. 25 years later, he's still kicking himself for that and wonders why I won't take him back, HA. Story 50. Poked the condom and tried to impregnate me, even though I said I want to be child-free. Admitted when I had to have a surgery that is risky for pregnancy because he thought I was pregnant. I was not. Story 51. Told the first racist joke I had ever heard. Say what you will about small-town country folk, but I had never heard something so offensive to the values my dad taught me until I moved to bigger cities. I was literally speechless and so sickened I remember the who, when, and where of it all. Needless to say I was no longer attracted to her. Story 52. Told me his relationship needs weren't being met about 2 weeks into the scariest part of the pandemic. I'm a COVID nurse, sorry. I had a lot going on, fella. Ruined my whole opinion of him. There was no coming back from that. Story 53. She talked about how she stalked her ex-boyfriend across multiple state lines. She wasn't a crush, but I just wanted to put this out there. This was a first date too. Story 54. 1. He brought his untrained dog on the date without asking. I love dogs. Trained dogs that don't lick my face and respect personal space, such as my own dog and many of my friends' dogs too. He had a TV sound system subwoofer strapped to his backseat, broken and stuck on 11 or something, wouldn't let me turn the music down. I'm convinced that one date actually caused hearing loss. Poor dog. 3. He blew smoke from his joint in my face when I told him I didn't smoke because I get anxious. 4. Ordered food delivery for himself and told me I couldn't have any cause leftovers were for his lunch tomorrow. 5. His car was painted with wall paint. 6. He yelled at me when his dog stressed me out by having explosive on the rug and then running over to me and attacking my legs. I didn't want to be on, so I said no and tried to step away from the dog. He asked me why I don't know how to deal with dogs, then proceeded to smack his dog. 7. Drank from the moment we went into his house even though he was meant to drive me home but also never offered me a drink. The cab was like 35 cause he lived in the fucking rich area of town halfway up the mountain and I lived not there. Why do many examples? Same date. I also left my umbrella at his house and then he lied when I asked for it back. Edit. I went to high school with the guy and had a huge crush on him all through school. Right after high school we matched on Tinder and I was so excited. Story 55. In high school, I had a crush on this nerdy guy that seemed like a sweetheart. He got really into partying and started acting like a when he started getting popular. I still liked him as a person and he was nice by himself. But man, it changed my perspective on him when he was with other people. Story 56. On a first date he asked me about my dad's political career and explained to me why his values were inherently bad. I don't always see eye to eye with my dad's political leanings, but he's always been supportive of me and it's my fucking dad. Then he went to the bathroom and looked up my dad's voting record in his office and proceeded to explain the good and bad political moves my dad made. Second date was at his place and he got really mad that I called him to figure out how to get into the building and interrupted a rerun of a Barcelona game. Then proceeded to make me watch 3 videos that defined his personality. The first was a stand-up skit about getting blackout drunk a lot. The second was a scene from Scandal. The third was a 40-minute video of a debate he'd been in high school. He was trying to impress me with his political prowess, I guess, but it just came off as him beating up on some poor girl who didn't know what she was talking about and didn't want to be there. It took my friends explaining to me that he sucked to take a step back and realize he wasn't for me, but that's what good friends are for. Story 57. I invited her to my place for ye old Netflix and chill. My dog, who was still a puppy at the time, and not easy to train, greeted her excitedly at the door. She responded by saying, "Get your fucking dog away from me." She was only at my house for an hour before I asked her to leave. She was nasty to my dog the entire time, called him a couple of names and at one point, kicked at him because he had the audacity to lay down near the bathroom door. I had this thought about how if she were willing to be into my dog this early in the relationship, how badly would she treat him when she settled in and God forbid end up alone with him. By Felicia. Story 58. We had known each other for a while and talked pretty frequently. Her birthday is about 3 weeks before mine and I got her something that was an inside joke between us. It was well received. She messages me 2 days after my birthday. "Oh, did I forget your birthday?" I was crushed, and never looked back. Story 59. There was a gal I had a huge crush on all throughout high school but was too timid to ask out. About 4 years after graduation she hit me up on Facebook and suggested hanging out and going to dinner. She had moved to another state and I happened to be in that state for a while for training. When we got to the restaurant she ordered 70 not a typo wings, a pitcher of margarita, and a family-sized cheese fries. I was slightly stunned but kept rolling with it to see what would happen. She then proceeded to loudly tell in great detail the story of when her and her gal pals had gone down across the border to Mexico to watch a donkey show. This ended in multiple complaints to the restaurant staff by the diners within earshot, approximately half the damned restaurant, and most simply got up and walked out. Eventually the food arrived, where she proceeded to eat all the skin off her 70 wings and throw the meat out, stopping briefly to grab a handful of cheese fries or drink some of her margarita pitcher. The pitcher, naturally, acting as a large glass for her rather than her pouring it into glasses each time. I had since transitioned from silent amusement to silent horror but, as one tends to do, thought that putting up with gluttonous buffoonery after a 200-mile drive would at least get me laid. 2 hours and a 200 bill later we end up at her place where she had planned a party with all her friends. About 6 beers and she turns to me in panicked hysteria, letting me know she's far too drunk to complete her bartender's license exam online, but that it's due in a matter of hours or she will lose her job. You guessed it. She stayed out and partied and I sat through the videos and took the quizzes on her work account. Bam, licensed bartender. Except not because it was her test. At least maybe now we'll end up getting laid. About the time I finished her exam she came back into the room, gave me a big "oh thank you" kiss, and suggested she'd like to shower up before bed. She did exactly that, took a shower, got out, and passed out in my lap. I left before she could wake up and never talked to her again. Story 60. Dated my sister, cheated on her with one of their mutual friends. They broke up, later dated another girl for a few months, got her pregnant, broke up, started dating another girl, got her pregnant, showed up to see the child of the first girl in the hospital with the second girl about 3 months along. Story 61. She spoke badly to her mother. I know people have different relationships and all, but hearing her speak rudely and condescendingly to her mother who was hosting feeding us just took the fire right out of me. Story 62. One crush and I would go dancing every week. One week he brought another girl. No thank you. This was after he attempted to have with me. He stopped when I said no, glad I did because he got the other girl pregnant within a month, then abandoned her when he learned that the baby wasn't going to be a boy. Story 63. Used the word. I had no idea, no racist vibe, none. Then she just casually said one day, "I wish that would turn down their music." It was at the end of a date. I skipped the kiss and dumped her the next day. She was gorgeous on the outside, way out of my league, but horribly ugly on the inside. Story 64 picked me up for a first date and their car stalled at a red light. They started sobbing uncontrollably and punching the steering wheel while apologizing over and over again. All they had to do was turn the key and keep driving, but this display of behavior was bizarre and unsettling to say the least.